All right. Welcome in. Welcome to episode 21 of the Cougar Digest podcast. I am one of the hosts, Rob Sellers, publisher of Cougar Digest. Joined at the moment by Gatlin Stewart. How are you been, Mr. Stewart?
Hey, Rob. I've been doing great. Got my holiday fix in, and now as we turn the corner into the new year, I'm looking forward to a wonderful year of Houston basketball and the new era of Houston football, and excited to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a little bit since we came on last. The last time we were on, I believe. Oh, that was right. We went on early signing day when all that was going down. So it's been a minute. Obviously, the holidays slowed things down a little bit for everybody. But yeah, basketball rolling along. I know it's probably a weird time to jump in after their first loss, but probably as good a time as any as well, because they're getting into conference play now, and they're going to start seeing, teams like that. Maybe, the obvious ones are going to be the Kansas, Texas, these major teams that everyone's had circled for wanting the opportunity to play. But the Big 12 being the Big 12, they've got teams out there, even the ones that aren't going to finish except somewhere in the middle of the pack by the end of it, that'll come up and bite you at any point. And so it was interesting to see, first a little bit of adversity, a little bit of a hostile atmosphere for the season. They dug that early hole, and, they did a good job of fighting back and made it close at the end, but end up falling to Iowa State and Ames 57-53. So you said you've been watching the games too. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, first off, it was an exciting game. Maybe my favorite. When the game went final, obviously, upset, but at the end of the day, I kind of walked away from it being really excited because in the American, we didn't get that kind of feeling. It really felt like a tournament game, and
right.
That's the benefit of being in the Big 12 is, any single night the top dog can get knocked off. I mean, Kansas goes and loses at UCF the very next night. And, it made me think about if you follow Kellen on Twitter, every time there's a road game, he always posts that advanced analytics graphic. and it's accompanied by all road games or street fights.
Yep.
And I mean, no truer words could be said about that game in Ames. I mean, two of the greatest defensive teams in the country going toe to toe, and it really felt like kind of the big difference was early. Obviously, Iowa State was able to convert their turnovers into points, and we weren't. And Kelvin kind of said as much on his radio show that I mean that was kind of one of the big problems was our transition defense was just not very good early. I think we ended up giving up like 12 points off of turnovers in the first half, right? And
Right.
that really ends up being the difference in a game like this. So I think once we kind of settled in, obviously there were clearly nerves, and I mean early we just could not get into an offense, could not get up a quality shot. But once we settled in and kind of were able to adjust to just the intensity of their defense, I thought we looked all right. And so it's lessons learned, and I think they'll be much better this weekend.
Yeah, it's one of those. They'll be better, more battle tested. They've not really proven to be one of those small school teams that some people hate pop up in the tournament because they never get tested and then bow out in the first couple of rounds despite being a high seed. Houston's not really been that team. They've shown they belong every year. They've shown up over there, so it'll be like you said. They'll be better for it in the end. This will be good for them. Knowing how Coach Champson runs his program, he'll use this accordingly, and I don't think he'll probably have to push it home too hard to the players, especially with the leadership and the seniors. Guys like Jamal Shed and stuff like that. They've been through all this before and they know. So
yeah, certainly. I don't think this is one that you dwell on at all. I mean, I'm sure they're already on to TCU and all of that, but just a couple thoughts that I did have from the game. There's been a lot of talk about the JoJo Tugler versus Javier Francis conversation, and I thought that game was just kind of another highlighted point of some of the differences that you get in experience, right? And even though this is Javier's first year really being a starter, he's been playing college basketball for 3 years now, and you just saw time and time again Tugler making just some freshman mistakes. And don't get me wrong, he had some great plays as well, and is again clearly an incredibly talented, probably the most talented true center that we've had in a while come through Houston, and will be fantastic. But there were several plays down the stretch where I saw Javier Francis, they're driving into the lane, and his ability to just go up vertically and contest shots without fouling is going to be huge in tournament or in conference play and come tournament, right? Where guard play tends to shine. So having that in defense was really encouraging to see. The biggest challenge I think for Houston is when the ball starts to stick, right? We don't move off the ball well. There's not a lot of action going on off ball. So if you don't have, we run that kind of high ball screen. It's a very NBA offense, right? You run the high pick and roll. You have your shooters spacing the floor, and you run the offense off of that screen. And when you can't get into the lane off of that screen, it creates some real challenges for us. And so I thought Emmanuel Sharp being able to get into the lane after he started hitting some shots, they were having to close out really hard on him, and it created some opportunities not just for him to score, but to be able to pass the ball out. And that's where the scramble, cross out, closeouts start to happen, and it creates opportunity for others. So that was encouraging to see. I think we need more of that. I think we need more guys to be able to step up and do that. That's one of the things you probably miss a lot from Terrence Arsenault, was his ability to just go by his man and get into the lane at times. So I think they'll really need to figure out how to create some more of that, especially against a team like TCU this weekend, who again has a really aggressive defense, likes to create turnovers and go and capitalize on them. Being interesting to see how Houston bounces back from that.
Yeah, no, that's all very good, true points. Sharp has impressed me the last few games. I think he's really kind of found a groove and I mean he's always been talented, obviously, but I've noticed him lately. He's really stepped up. And like you mentioned, it's not always just the outside. Like when they were getting good closeouts on him, he did a great job of taking that to the paint or whatever and creating another opportunity or whatever. But yeah, leading the team with 20 points this week. I do, like Kyle said too, and like you mentioned, Terrence Arsenault. There's going to be points in the season you're still going to miss him, but it is what it is. You got to move forward and do the best you can with what you got. And I've been pretty impressed with Francis's length. I know it's something that's been talked about often and all that, but I think that's going to be good for the Cougars at some point. You know, they're going to come across a team somewhere along the way that's got some good bigs type thing that they're going to want the length. And Roberts being back and healthy now fully, that helps obviously just in the rotations and this and that. But when you see him, it's something that doesn't feel like it always translates to TV, like when I watch a game on the road or when I watch something on TV. But when you see Francis in person, you know what I mean? It's just his length is amazing. It really is just, you know, hopefully as he continues to evolve and this and that, you know what I mean? I think, like I said before, somewhere along the way, his athleticism and length is going to really help him out whenever they need him.
And I'll tell you what, something I saw from Francis that just got me fired up the other night was when Jamal Shed drove into the lane, he dumped it off to Javier Francis, and Francis dunked the basketball. I feel like for the last month, Shed has lost probably 15 assists to passes to all three of our bigs, where he dumped it off and they've just tried to, you know, throw it up off the glass
and getting blocked.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was just powerful. He went right and phenomenal. So I think we need a little bit more of that. Don't necessarily need Francis to be able to create his own offense, but you have to capitalize on opportunities like that. And speaking of capitalizing on opportunities, here's an opportunity to transition to our friend Kevin.
I hate technology. That's all right.
Yeah. Can you hear me also?
Yeah.
Okay, good. A lot of weird things going on today, guys. Sorry about that.
No worries, man.
I mean, anybody want to buy any Canon equipment or anything out there? I'm selling it really
I was
cheap.
able to get it. I'm just saying I was able to get us live properly without.
That's right. That was a miracle in itself.
I was like, I think I know what I got to do here to go live. I guess we'll figure this out in just a second.
Rob, I thought I'd shown you this enough that you would know how to do it if anything ever happens, right? That
I think I feel a lot more confident now. That's for sure.
Well, you don't need me anymore then, I guess.
Yeah, right.
What's going on, guys? Sorry I'm late to the party.
What
have I missed?
No
talking
worries.
hoops right now. Talking about
the Iowa State game. So, Kevin, I thought of you when watching this game because though Houston still was not, you know, by any means perfect from the free throw line. Yeah. One of the things that did give them an opportunity to win this game late was they hit some free throws in the second half.
True.
And ended up shooting. You know, I think at one point they were 8 for 12, right? Shot a really nice.
That's where it finished, was 8 for 12.
Okay, yeah, there you go. And so, Kevin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. Had any lessons or takeaways?
All right. Did anybody else like subconsciously was doing this during the game? I found myself dancing with the crowd for some reason. First off, what an amazing home environment there at Iowa State. I'd never really paid attention to a home game at Iowa State before, but I mean, talk about a good time. They were having fun at that game, right?
Even though apparently there was like a snow blizzard during that game. It was like 10 degrees outside and the roads were frozen. And 15,000 Iowa fans.
That's awesome. That's great. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's what's good about bigger conferences. They got cool stuff like that.
And that's what I was thinking. And you knowingly going into the Big 12, we knew it was going to be some more difficult teams to play. Especially and look, Iowa State, they've been known for the last couple of years as just giant killers, right? Beating top 25 teams at home. They're not afraid to play teams that people think on paper are better than them. So it was a dogfight, and I expect a dogfight every single night in this conference. West Virginia, but have y'all talked about the West Virginia game at all?
No, we did not talk West Virginia.
Okay, we haven't been on since obviously before that game, and what I thought watching that game, 30-35 point win, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. We're sending a message to the conference, right? Like, we're here. This ain't football. This is basketball. This is where you can't, get on over us. And then we show what we could do, obviously, against, West Virginia without Terrence Arsenault, which was something that I wanted to watch. Like, how are we going to be able to play without, TA coming off the bench like that? We picked up the slack pretty well in that West Virginia game. Then, of course, going forward to Iowa State, that is a team that is very similar to Houston, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to beat the University of Houston in basketball, is you have to play the style that we play, and not a lot of teams play that, but Iowa State does. I thought it was, it was a fun game to watch, even though it was just the first half wasn't all that fun. But the second half, once things picked up, once we got there and we tied it up, I think, what was it? We tied up, it was a 41-41. I can't remember what the score was.
51, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was somewhere around there, and we had plenty of chances to I think to win the game. We just could never get that lead. We could never, push that lead out. And Iowa State, I mean, who was that 6'8" freshman? Can't remember his name, but I mean, he just took care of things for us at the end of the game there, with hitting that turnaround fadeaway and hitting a couple free throws, I think, at the end there. But exciting game, great home environment. Can't wait till we play them again.
Yeah. No, Kevin, you make a great point there about every time Houston did manage to pull back a little bit of momentum, and they would tie it up or get within 4, and you kind of felt like, okay, and here we go.
Yeah.
And Iowa State would just respond with a 5-0 run of their own, and they hit some really, really tough shots down the stretch. And again,
clutch play.
Yeah, great point there, by the way, also about how the crowd fed into that. I mean,
for sure,
every time we started to show a sign of life, Iowa State gets one kind of momentum play, and that place erupted, and it felt like the entire game you could not take the crowd out of it. And just for fans who may not think about it as much, Kelvin talked about this again a little bit on his radio show, just about how important the home court advantage is in college basketball.
Yeah.
So much more so even than football, in my opinion, right? Because in basketball, there's so much communication that goes on live on the court, right? Yep. You're calling out screens, where they're coming from, switches, getting into different sets and all that. And so the ability to have to lock in mentally and drown out all of that noise is a real challenge, especially when you're not used to it, right? So for Houston, this is the first time they've really been in that situation for a conference game. Certainly they've played in, they go to Oregon and stuff like that, but this was different.
Yeah.
And Iowa State, I mean, again, just all the credit in the world to them for their play,
sure. Yeah,
for the atmosphere. They gave us all that we wanted and then some.
Totally agree. It didn't help that they played a very clean game also. They didn't turn the ball over very much. They didn't foul us. I don't think we were in the bonus in the first half or the second. We took 12 free throws during the game. We hit 8 of them. They hit 18 out of 22, I think, somewhere 22, 23, something like that. That's a 10-point difference right there in the free throws. We couldn't stop fouling them, apparently, to the refs, and they couldn't foul us at all, during the game.
Yeah. There's some discrepancy about that.
Hey, I see it one way. You guys can see it another. That's fine,
Yeah.
Again, it was a fun game. Can't wait to play them again. What a great home environment there at Iowa State. Like, really. Yeah. Really, and I was doing this a couple, and I was like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?"
Listen,
it's infectious.
I will say before we move on, maybe we look at TCU, but I spent some time on Twitter that evening, just because I hate myself after the game, and just having to listen to all of these Kansas fans who I didn't know that I hate Kansas fans. Apparently, I do.
Oh yeah, we have to.
Welcome to the club.
I never encountered them until all of a sudden it started getting fed into my Twitter feed. And man, I mean, thank you, UCF. Like, just what a wonderful way of the universe, just balancing out the world. But also, again, just what a testament to how exciting the Big 12 is going to be for UCF to pull off that upset.
Oh yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That it top to bottom, obviously best conference for basketball in the country.
And I think it, I think, it, as opposed to the football program, hands down.
Oh, it's not.
To the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, it, as opposed to, the football program, hands down. And I think, the basketball fans of the Big 12 were actually excited to get Houston in. Houston's been making these waves around. They're right in the heart of Big 12 country, battling these teams for recruits now and all that before they got in there. Football was not a scary situation that much for, I don't think anybody was really all that worried, especially as the year went on last year. But for basketball, some of these diehard basketball fans, and they've got some good ones in the Big 12. They were licking their chops, and they have been getting a shot to finally, we're going to show Houston what the big, I'm sure, like you mentioned your Twitter feed there. So I think it's more exciting, you know what I mean, for that many people to show up in a snowstorm or whatever. And I know that's probably what their basketball's like anyway, but I guarantee a lot of teams, they have Houston circled on their schedule just because the fans want to see it in person. They want to see how this new team's going to stack up with the rest of the conference. So
well,
sure.
and that's fun too there, Rob, just about crowds in general. Like I think one of the benefits of having a conference that is competitive top to bottom is every team, again, we would, when we were in the American, sure, everybody had us circled, but you would go to atmospheres in a road game that are dead because these teams, you just feel like you don't have a chance, right? And now in the Big 12, I mean, it doesn't matter who you're playing, at a Houston game, I promise you the rest of the season fans are going to show up because every game is going to it has the potential to be an upset or a can't miss game. And vice versa for these fans, whether Houston is number 2 in the country or 25 or not ranked, we're a quality program, and fans want to go see that. And so I think it makes for not just compelling TV, but also compelling atmospheres across the country.
Very true. So Houston looks to rebound off their first loss of the season. They'll, like we mentioned, Saturday, they'll take on TCU. Yeah,
the tough game.
Up in Fort Worth. So again, just another hostile environment. I've actually been to that arena a couple times. I covered back when they still had Texas High School Coaches Association All-Star games at the end of each year for football and basketball. I actually covered what was the power forward's name? Man, I'm gonna hate myself forgetting this dude's name. Who was the kid that transferred out at the very end? I guess when he transferred to Oklahoma and plays last year up there.
Thompson?
Yeah.
Not Tom. Was it Thompson?
That's Thomas or Thompson. Anyway, I'll remember it later. Someone can spit it up there on the feed.
That was the thing like Chicken Knowles, and those other guys.
Bit, also? At the same time. And I think when they all left at the same time, Chicken stayed, but everybody else left with Joe Young and all that when everybody left.
Yeah.
And he was a forward from Killeen. I remember. Anyway, I've been in that arena a couple times covering stuff up there. So it's a pretty tight little tight quarters in there. The fans are pretty much right on top of you. So
they're really making a push with Oregon for maybe ugliest court.
Tayshawn Thomas. There we go. That's what I couldn't think of it. Tayshawn Thomas.
I was thinking Thompson. I was in the T's, so I was
pretty close.
So yeah. So obviously Houston's going to have to bring their A game. They're going to have to, looking back over some of the stats. Shed had 14 points, but I think he only had like 3 assists. That's obviously, we talked about that too, opportunities wise, and just how good Iowa State was defensively in terms of opportunities. But you would hope normally, I don't know what his average is, but I'm guessing that was probably low off the top of my head.
I think he averages somewhere around 6 or 7. I think.
Yeah. 3 feels low.
Yeah. Something like that.
Only 8 boards for Jawan Roberts or J1.
It was a tough game. It was tough to get offensive boards, against Iowa State. They're a team that plays basically the same style of basketball that we do. And that's why it was such a knockdown, drag out fest. Two teams who play, great defense playing against each other. It was obviously a defensive game. Mm-hmm. But TCU, with TCU coming up next, I haven't had a chance to watch too much TCU basketball. Watched a little bit of the game last night. They have a really good coach up there in TCU. I know that. Dixon, Jamie Dixon. Is that who it is? I can't remember who it is up there. But great coach, really good coach. And again, you said A game, Rob. We have to bring our A game every single night in this conference. I think.
And
Yeah,
so I believe they're receiving votes. They're just outside the top 25. So
yeah, and especially with the win over Oklahoma, I'll probably get them in there whenever
yeah,
they redo the rankings. And something kind of forward looking again. Same, Kevin. I haven't gotten to watch much TCU this year. I tried to watch a little bit of the Oklahoma game, just knowing we're playing them soon. But it'll be interesting to see. I think forward looking. One of the things I mentioned and that I think Houston needs to figure out is when Jamal Shed comes off the floor. Can LJ Cryer be the primary ball handler? I know that's part of why he came to Houston was selling that they were going to let him do that. And again, Iowa State is a very, very great defense. I think LJ Cryer had gotten a lot better throughout the early part of the season at handling the ball, being able to be that primary ball handler. But can he do it against Big 12 caliber competition? That will be something to watch because that was one of the things was when Jamal Shed wasn't on the floor, we did not have anybody besides Emmanuel Sharp who could get into the teeth of the defense, create shots for others, initiate offense. LJ Cryer, I mean, they just smothered him and kind of said, somebody else go beat us. So, will he be able to, I don't know, not necessarily. I don't think Houston needs him to be Jamal Shed 2.0, but I think he needs to be able to confidently initiate offense and handle that pressure and dribble the ball.
Yeah. Like you said, that was the talk going into the season, the fact that he was coming in order to be able to do that and get the minutes over there at the point. So, you have
and
to.
I've been impressed with his growth doing it. I thought early in the season he did not look great, and the last several games leading up to Iowa State, he'd actually, at least in my eyes, taken a big step forward there and was doing some really great things. I think it'll just be now the next progression is can he adjust to these Big 12 defenses and do it again at the next level.
At least he has some experience or familiarity with it from the Baylor days. Obviously, that's probably good, and I'm sure he's shared his thoughts with the team. Having played at some of these places already, you know what I mean. He can kind of tell them what to expect heading into them. So, yeah, I mean they'll look to rebound Saturday. It'll be another good one. Like you said, you're in the Big 12 play now, and it's twice a week. You know what I mean? It's a tough game. You gotta come to play, or people will sneak up and get you easily. So it'll be interesting to see these next few games how it goes as they start really getting into the meat of it. So what else, you guys? Football staff is continuing to. Speaking of, here's your good segue. At the last home game, it's interesting because they sit the recruits right in front of where I sit at the bottom of the media tables, and it's cool to see the atmosphere in there that they have to sell these recruits on in the short term. Hoping, of course, that football will get to the same spot, but the loudness, the whole atmosphere in general, how it is now for this the way it's been the last few years and for Tita Center. So it was cool. I saw a lot of the recruits and families and stuff kind of getting into it a bit too with the pregame stuff and all that. So it's interesting to see them sell that. And I will say too, Coach Fritz, you see him a lot around when they have these recruits. Obviously, they sit with assistant coaches and recruiting staff, this and that. But Coach Fritz is always in the midst of it. He comes and goes some, but he'll go and sit with specific people, recruits and stuff for a while, or parents. And you see him there a lot. Like I said, he's in and out, but he's constantly moving around. I don't know where he's at when he's not there, but I don't feel like it's sitting somewhere watching the game. So it's good to see as they continue to, search to finish up these last few pieces and all that of what they're going to get from transfer portal, recruiting class, and all that. It's been active again since early signing period. They've continued to add from that last group that was at that game. Malik Carr, obviously, is a big name. A lot of people talking about the tight end from Michigan State that's coming in. Super athletic. And just I mean, you were talking about matter of fact, Gatlin, I believe, was it you that was talking back and forth a bit on the board with with Mr. Compton about tight end
Yeah.
play and the size and
Yeah.
this and that these days?
So Malik Carr, by the way, I was looking him up a little bit prior to this. Kid is still growing. As a freshman at Purdue, he was listed at 6'4", 230. This year on the Michigan State roster, he was listed at 6'6", 260. So
That's wild. You know,
he is.
is that just the general adjustment from the schools and what they normally do, or
Well,
it's
yeah,
not
I mean,
unreasonable. I would,
very real.
With shoes, without shoes. Yeah.
I've been there. It is most often a college student who is taking these heights and weights.
Exactly.
It's very easy to ask them to add an extra inch or two.
Yeah.
So that's a very real possibility. But watching him on tape, I mean, he looks 6'6", 260, I will say. So
he probably grew a little bit still more since
yeah. But no, one of the things that I had pointed out, we had this conversation on the board, that I thought Malik Carr was a really big addition, especially given Kevin Barbay's offense, because he runs a lot of what we would call 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, right? And just running the ball in general. But if you look across the board at kind of Power 5 versus Group of 5, one of the big differences is in the height of their tight ends. Tight ends at the Group of 5 level are usually in that 6'2" to 6'4" range. Yeah. And when you start looking at Power 5, they tend to be that 6'5" to 6'7", maybe even 6'8", right? And those extra couple inches, extra 20, 30 pounds makes a huge difference, especially when you have a guy like Carr who is athletic enough to use that size to run and stretch the field vertically, to set the edge on run plays. It's a huge value. You kind of think we had one of those under Dana Seth Green, the Minnesota transfer, just a massive human, just not necessarily as talented, right, or athletic as I'd say Malik Carr looks to be. But yeah, it's a huge difference, and it was exciting to see Houston land a guy who, again, it's not like he rode the bench at Michigan State. And 30 catches and several hundred as a junior at Michigan State. It's a huge pickup for Houston.
Yeah, no, they're in the Michigan State fans. A lot of them. I mean, I know surely not all of them, but a lot of them. They were hoping they might be able to keep him or whatever. But that'll be interesting to see how he pans out. They add some safeties. Kentrell Webb, I think was he wasn't in early. So yeah, Kentrell Webb. Hershey McLaurin from West Virginia is another good one, and Tegan Wilk, the safety from East Carolina. Yeah. So they did. Yep. They did add those
other names that since signing day.
Obviously, the quarterback,
Cedric Milton,
Zion
Chris, and Mekhi Muse.
Said Milton coming back is cool. I remember Houston really wanted him coming out of high school, and he got down to picking between Houston and Ole Miss, and they made him think about a lot. They really did not. They had a chance, but Ole Miss and the SEC was just too much. So cool to see him come home. I sent him a message because we used to talk a lot when he was going through the initial recruiting process. So we went back and forth, and he's excited to be back home, get to play to finish up here. So that's one of those, I think, Gatlin and I were just discussing a little bit the offensive line before we came on, just in terms of what they've added. And I told Gatlin I wish they'd add one more solid tackle. I would love for that, just in a perfect world, just in terms of being able to do that for them. But they've added they've added some pieces that are formidable for sure, and I think that this staff will have the ability to meld the offense more. Or maybe be more willing to meld the offense to what they have versus shying away from it completely because fear or lack of, you know what I mean? Trying to word that nicely. What's the way to clean that up? This staff should not be as stubborn with, being able to make do with what they have, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things Rob, you and I were talking about this off air. I'm sorry, I just don't subscribe to the theory that you can't run the ball unless you have these 4-star highly recruited tackles. And the examples I used was, I mean, you look at this past year, Cincinnati and Central Florida were both top of the Big 12 in yards per carry, total rushing yards, rushing offense. And it's not like, I mean, Central Florida has a great recruiting class this year, but it's not like these guys had been recruiting in the top, 20 recruiting classes for the last 4 years. These are 3-star tackles and centers and interior linemen that they've recruited, developed, and retained. And that's exactly what I expect Willie Fritz and the staff on Nagabi to do, moving forward. It's possible. And again, the example I gave, I looked it up, at least for the Missouri game. I haven't pulled the rest of them specifically, but in Kevin Barbay's time at Central Michigan and at Appalachian State, he rushed for at least over 100 yards in the following games against Missouri, LSU, North Carolina, and Texas A&M. And I believe in all those games had at least 300 yards of total offense. So
It's
again,
doable.
it's doable with much lesser talent than is currently on the Houston roster.
Yeah,
You're able to run the ball. Now, the one thing I will say, this offense does not necessarily play well from behind. We're not really here to talk about the offense, but Houston fans, if we're not able to run the ball, we will be in for a long fall. So,
we'll skip right over that one. But yeah, go back.
Man,
to
I thought I was the one who was bringing everyone down last year. Gatlin started out this year.
Have you thought about motivational speaking?
I just want to be clear because I want everyone to understand what we're getting here in Kevin Barbay, and it's not a super exciting, sexy offense. It is so simple, and they run the ball.
Sexy.
You're right, Rob. That's a very great point. And I think one of the encouragements, though, and this is going back to Zion Chris, one of these names that they signed. When Kevin Barbay was at Central Michigan, they had a quarterback battle there. Early in the season, Central Michigan went with some pocket passer quarterback, and in the LSU game, actually, they were struggling really hard into the game. Garbage time, they put in this dual threat kid, and it really sparked something in the offense. And it adds an additional layer when you talk about kind of a traditional run game. They do some RPO stuff, but at the end of the day, what you're really talking about is inside-outside zone, some deuce runs, gap scheme.
Again, there's nothing flashy out there anymore.
Yeah, he does add a lot of motion and pre-snap kind of smoke and mirrors that I think add a lot to the offense. But at the end of the day, it's very simple concepts, which is great for a quarterback. And it allows them to just go out, play fast, and have in a lot of these formations, you're really looking at 2-3 route concepts where there's not a huge progression. You're not asking a quarterback to make a ton of reads, and it simplifies it. And so I think whether it's Zion Chris, whether it's Donovan Smith, whether it's Uwe Ale, I think all three of them bring something unique and different to the offense as far as what they add. The biggest thing is you need a quarterback who can be on time and on target. And I don't know that any of these guys have proven that they can do that at a Power 5 level. So it'll be interesting this spring to see who comes out on top from that perspective.
Yeah, I'm interested to find. I need to follow up a little bit more too. I'm interested to see if everybody's going to be available for the spring. I'd had somebody mention to me that potentially one of the quarterbacks may not be available in the spring, which would make it interesting. So let me follow up more on that, and then we'll pass it along later. But when you look at what they did add offensive line wise, they added a couple guys that are young, kind of projects, so to speak. They'll be in the developmental guys. But Jake Wiley from UCLA, he's got starts at tackle and at guard. I did hear the other day that Tank Jenkins did finally get his medical redshirt approved. Okay. So he will be available next year, and you can kind of pencil him in probably at right guard.
Yeah.
Obviously, Pancake will be back in the middle. But Cedric Melton brings experience. He's got starts under his belt. Um, Again, I wish they maybe could land one more, and we'll see. I know they're still chasing a couple guys. The freshman, or excuse me, the high school kid they brought in from Grandview. Sorry, he's up here on the sign list.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Joyner.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm told he's probably going to come in and he'll begin at center. So they'll start working to see what they can groom behind Pancake there.
Okay.
Mhm. I would also note, I mean, it makes sense, right? Centers can often play guard. Guards can play center. So if you got a guy who can play center, start him there, let him, get reps, and you typically have to know everyone's blocking assignments at center, anyways. So that makes a lot of sense. Start him there and see where he develops.
Right, and they got time, and that again, they got a good mix on board now of some young, some old. Continued, they got to continue working, and hopefully they can get some more in the transfer portal. But it's starting to look more formidable to me, at least. It lacks some. They've chased some stud tackles. They've had some good guys on campus, but they've just not been able to land like the splashy big name get. But I think it's very formidable. It's starting to look better to me. The mix of experience and youth that'll be in that room, and I think Nagave kind of proved in his first year, at least from the people I was able to talk to, that he really won the kids over. He's very, very technically technician forward type, teaches a lot of technique, really, really pounds that home. So I think they'll be all right. I really do, and I think they've got a great stable of backs. They've got some really good wide receivers. The quarterback, we'll see. You know what I mean? How that all pans out. They have the potential to have a decent quarterback. So it's tough. I think hopefully I've heard that it should be better in spring in terms of availability and all that. I want to say I did overhear a conversation about spring game, and I'm actually looking forward. In this day and age with so many new faces coming and going. I'm hoping we actually get to see something this spring and see a little bit of something that'll tell us a little bit more about what the identity is going to be of the offense, the defense, all that other stuff. So there's long off season ahead, but plenty to still figure out as well. So
Rob, have you had a chance to talk to anybody who covered, I guess, Tulane before to see how Fritz does things in the spring?
No, I've not yet.
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
No, I got you.
Right,
I've not asked. That is a good point, though. I should probably reach out. I don't think we have a 247 site, but
I was about to say I don't think they have somebody.
Yeah, so I don't know. It might be worth digging into though, just to figure out.
Real quick, one other name before we move on that we signed, Mekhi Muse, the transfer.
Oh, that's the new one, yeah, for the Georgia
wide receiver from Georgia. So just to give for the folks that don't know, and weren't on the board. Walk on at Georgia, came on the past. I think this was year 3 for him.
Third year,
yeah. At Georgia, worked his way into the rotation a little bit. Had 13 catches and some, kind of cleanup duty at the end of some games, but was really electric for them as their backup kick returner. And ended up, I think the guy got hurt at one point and had a punt return for a touchdown or something like that. Really electric in the return game. The reason I bring it up, digging into Kevin Barbay some more, he was at Central Michigan in 2021. Anybody who's a Hard Knocks fan might remember Khalil Pimpleton from the season with the Detroit Lions. He was a 1,000-yard receiver at Central Michigan at 5'7". Kind of very, very similar mold in terms of how I think they might be used. I think there's a real role for Mekhi Muse in this offense. In a lot of they do a lot of, like I said, pre-snap motion, a lot of orbit motions around the back, jet sweep, kind of getting playmakers out into space. I think Mekhi Muse kind of fits that spot really well. So
yeah, I don't know. Georgia was their fans were not thrilled to lose him. He's one of those guys coming as a walk-on like that. Yeah. But he had kind of worked his way into the fan favorite, so to speak. So Again, really good pickup on him for sure. They added him just yesterday. I put him in the system today, or 2 days ago, I think. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, they filled out. They get a 1 year rental in Jaden York, former tight end from Tech. He'll be a preferred walk on. So that's good for them. Trying to look through real quick, make sure I missed anything else. In terms of what they've added, I've not. Last I remember, and you guys can correct me if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong. Sorry, that was a good one. They were still looking for one more coach, if I'm not mistaken, right? One more position coach. After we had,
I believe we got the answer on that Barbet will be coaching tight ends, so they're actually not looking.
So he's going to double it. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and so they'll have.
I was trying to remember back to the press conference. I know he went through each one, and he said at the time that they were looking potentially for one more.
Unless, well, actually, you very do we have anybody on running backs? I think that was the conversation. Was we had two spots, and
I was
and
curious.
For one.
Yeah,
so I think it's a running back coach they're still looking for.
Yeah.
Good point, Rob. And so, I mean, it's not like it's any kind of priority here at the moment, but I'm sure that's something they're working on already. Probably we're waiting on somebody to finish up a game or something. You know what I mean? It's these things are generally, like I said, he's got to have somebody in mind. So,
well, I don't want to just, I will also say, it could be a situation where if the guys you like and trust aren't available, something that staffs have done in the past, that they might end up doing is, say, bring in, essentially a GA to coach running backs for the season, and leave that spot open and give yourself
get your guy later.
Yeah, to find a guy, because at the end of the day, I mean, these position coaches can be really valuable, but it's better, at least in my mind, to not have a guy than to have the wrong guy that you're going to be stuck with for, I mean, these are 2-3 year contracts. You're not going to move on after a year. So, they might just be waiting for the right guy to come along.
As far as scholarships go, I got this here asking how many more. It's so fluid. It's really weird. They don't have numbers anymore, really, that's been suspended in the short term. So they don't have numbers they have to stay under in terms of like the 25. They just have to stay under 85 total on scholarship. So with people still potentially leaving after spring ball, it's going to be kind of fluid. They'll always have, and they'll probably always, like the last staff, always have one or two in the pocket, so to speak. And if they don't find a way to fill it, they'll hand them out to walk-ons, for the following year. So really not a number per se. I know they're still, they're still looking for more offensive linemen. They're still looking at D linemen. What else? Wide receiver? No, probably Muse takes care of that. I would think. I can't really think of anything else. I'll have to go back through and really look and see what else they're still chasing. Is they're down to the list of guys that they've got open offers to from the portal is slimmed down a lot now. So it's getting to the kind of the final last little bit, because these guys are going to want to transfer and be in here. School starts next Monday, so that should die down some. There'll still be something floating around, of course, but that'll die down some until after spring.
It looks like the next portal window is April 16th through the 30th, I believe. It'll be right after all these schools finish their spring ball periods. There'll be another huge wave of guys who hop in.
Yeah.
Speaking of, one more name that just hit the portal today, Manny Nunnery is back in the portal.
Yeah, I saw that on the board.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to reach out to him and find out what his interests are, what he's looking for. I know who I can call to figure it out, but it would be interesting. I don't know, with as many linebackers as they've added, I wonder if there's still a window. If his issue is with the last staff, then would he be interested in coming back or not, type thing. So it'd be worth checking into.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and even more so just for Cougs to keep an eye on where he lands. I mean, he was a fan favorite when he was here.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. There's not been a ton of guys that have transferred out. There have, but not crazy amounts just yet. But I find it tougher to try to keep up with these guys. You know what I mean? Like I didn't watch a whole lot of Florida games, and the few times I know I was on them trying to figure out where they were playing him and this and that. So sometimes especially if they transfer out of the conference or it's you don't see them anymore type thing, it kind of stinks trying to keep track of what they're doing. So I don't think he played a whole lot over there this year.
No, I think he played I believe in all 13 games, but started 4, I think is what I saw.
Yeah.
So kind of, rotational player is kind of
right. Like. Maybe he's not happy with that. So
maybe
see where he ends up. He's clearly talented,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Somebody will get a good player there.
Yep.
So anything else? We're already zooming up on the hour mark.
Have you all talked about Saban?
Nah, we talked off air.
I mean, that's kind of big news in college football. I mean, deal. Legendary coach, probably arguably greatest coach of all time, and is hanging it up. And there's going to be a big void in Alabama.
I was telling Gatlin, I would not want. I don't know who they're going to hire. I would not want to be the guy going in next. I mean, and everyone knows it, but someone's going to do it. Obviously, you're walking into a whole wealth of talent and resources at your hands, like Gatlin was saying earlier.
Yeah, that's true. But those expectations are through the roof.
You're following Nick Saban.
Another interesting thing I saw though from Reese Davis today regarding it. Apparently, Nick Saban is not expecting to completely walk away from Alabama football, though. He plans to continue being involved with the program and kind of an advisor role, which I think is just a bad idea.
Yeah.
And
I just think that's bad news, man.
Yeah.
You don't think he's much of a people person?
Yeah.
It's different to think of some point in the future when Kelvin Sampson hangs it up and him still being around because it's his son, and you know what I mean, like that one.
Yeah, that one you kind of assume will happen. Makes sense.
Yeah,
it's I think
Nick Saban looking over my shoulder over there.
the name I've seen that I think makes sense is Kalen DeBoer. Obviously Dan Lanning shot the job down today publicly. It doesn't look like Sark is interested. Perhaps Kiffin would be interested, but when you start going down this list, I don't think Dabo is really a name that folks are interested in. So, that list starts to
Everyone always swore it would be Dabo too. Whenever Saban ever hung it up, Dabo would be the guy. But with the way it all lands at the moment, I don't know. I don't think there's a ton of people excited about that.
Yeah, Dabo hates playing he doesn't want to pay his players. He hates transfer. He hates all that stuff. I mean, and that's what you have to do at Alabama. I mean, it's all these days all about NIL and transfer portal, and he hates the stuff. But he's at a school that has to deal with that also. I mean, at some point in time, he's going to have to come around or update his resume and find another job or something. I don't know. But I was thinking about Saban and obviously I think Future on the site said it was age and health. But you have to think it's got to be just the process now when it comes to recruiting. And everything that comes into it nowadays. I would assume that he doesn't want to deal with that stuff either in this day and age, but who knows?
Yeah. As far as Jamari Caldwell, I don't think he's coming back, but I've not heard that definitely either. He's again, not to harp on to be the guy that harps on it, but they should never let them two in the portal.
Harp on it.
I'm going to join y'all's motivational speaking tour that y'all have working. I don't think he comes back, and I don't blame anybody for taking the money. Let's put it that way first. That's first and foremost. It's easy for people to be like, "Oh, what happened to the Lord?" Man, we're talking about life-changing, generational money for some of these people and their families. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
These kids get that opportunity to do that and put food on the table and, set themselves up. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Like, even if you're just a guy that doesn't go beyond college, man, imagine graduating college with a degree. Maybe you made $100,000 type deal. You were able to squirrel away just through menial little, after 4 years, you graduate with a degree, $100,000. I mean, that, talk about setting people up to get off on the right step in life. And if you were good in college and don't make it to the NFL, and say you made $400,000 or $500,000, now you're talking about I've got a degree and I don't go work for people. I go do what I want. You know what I mean? You figure out what you want to do. So I always try to, you know what I mean? I see the positives in it a lot of times that I try to focus on that. It sucks that players are going and coming and going like they are. But in the end, if a kid picks money, it's tough for me to look poorly upon that.
Rob, I'm with you with that. No problem at all with these kids earning money. I just think it's the process that has just everybody
it's still,
jaded about it.
absolutely. It's still
It
the Wild
can't
West
sustain
and
this way.
horrible,
It can't.
but nah.
Well, they actually I saw news today that the NCAA president is reviewing rule changes right now to allow schools to pay NIL directly.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually
one of those has been floating out there for a few months now that they've been discussing. So that'll again.
They're evaluating changes for as early as this fall.
So essentially, employees. They're employees of the university.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be badged employees, but it'll be more of a 1099 contracted work situation where they're not necessarily paying them for. I don't think it'll be a deal where they're paying them for their performance on the field. The way it'll be framed is you're paying these kids for the jersey rights, right? So the school can sell jerseys directly with the names on the back, or you're paying these kids for their likeness and they go and do all the team autograph signings in the spring that all these schools do.
Yeah,
kids will get 10 grand for that, that kind of stuff. And then, Alabama will find a way to pay their quarterback $3 million somehow for these kinds of appearances. And
he signed a lot of autographs,
Yeah, and it'll it'll essentially be what these NIL collectives are, but it'll be directly from the school.
Let me ask
you to the point where they're W-2 employees just yet.
I'm kind of curious as to how this might, unfold whenever it comes to. I mean, look, obviously, college. Not everybody's going to make it to the NFL. There's still value in obviously college degrees and stuff like that. But are we going to get to a point where classes don't even matter anymore if they're paid to, if they're being paid to play football? Is that what some coaches are going to probably try to emphasize? Like, well, they're here to play football. They're not here to go to class so much.
I mean, they already take all online classes, which isn't all that unusual anyway. But
true,
most of these players don't ever step foot in a classroom these days. Not from the way I understand it.
Right.
So
I don't know. It's just something that just rolls around in the head. It's like
I know there's like a million things. The way that how many different ways is this going to be impacted over the next 2 years, 5 years, decade?
Yeah.
Can it withstand itself? Type thing. So yeah, it's hang on and we'll figure it out together. I guess.
I think
it has to be a cap of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I feel like it comes back around to the point where it's like, if it becomes too professionalized, I think you lose a little bit of what college football is, right? Like, a lot of these fans would rather just go watch the NFL if that's all it is.
Right.
And so to some degree, I think the market will correct itself, right? These schools, look, no one, my brother says this all the time when we have this conversation, no one has unlimited pockets, right? Money is a finite resource. As crazy as that is to say about a school like Alabama or Oregon, eventually if these schools aren't getting a return on this investment, they're going to stop writing the checks.
Sure.
Yep.
And so, you'll have these generational talents. I mean, a kid like Cam Ward enters the portal not because he, was looking for a payday, but because, the school gets relegated to G5 and his coach leaves. And he's going to go and make several $1 million this year to play college football. And that'll probably continue to happen. But some of these kids, I mean, who are just, a positional player and a starter, they're not going to be making $500,000 because the team isn't winning and they're not getting that ROI. And I think at the end of the day, it'll ultimately all correct itself.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. We need an even playing field. That's just what I always, think about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Has it ever been an even playing field?
No, but at least all that stuff was it wasn't out in the open. It was under the table. You really didn't see it.
But listen, if you really look at it, I mean, if anything, I think this has evened the playing field more than ever
Transfer portal
with an
has.
expanded playoff access. I mean, this is Well, transfer portal and NIL, right? Because you look at some of these teams. I mean, Michigan is a perfect example. After they lost the game to TCU last year, they had 3 big time starters, and I believe Blake Corum was one of them, who they were all juniors and eligible for the draft. Michigan's NIL collective put together, I think it was like $1.5 million, $2 million between the 3 of them. And I think it was called the One More Ride Fund or something like that. And got all 3 of those players to stay for 1 more year. And you make an argument that NIL fund is ultimately the difference between Michigan winning a national championship and not. And that doesn't happen in previous years, right? And so these schools who have a team, you think about, that Houston 2015 team, right? How many guys go to the league from that and leave early, in 2016, whatever. Ed Oliver, right? Maybe if you have another year of Ed Oliver, all of these things for every school. You think about these schools are able to put together, I think really talented senior laden classes now because they don't have to leave to go make that money. And I think that creates the ability to have more parity, where you don't have to land as many recruits as Alabama. You just need to put together a great team and wait for them to mature, and you have an opportunity to make a run there.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. That for some schools it does even it out for your Michigans and your USCs and your Alabamas and your Georgias, but for the smaller schools who can't afford $1.5 million NIL collectives for 3 players to go and win a national championship, it doesn't even the playing field. That's
but let's be real. But that's my point. Is the playing field was never even for those schools for us, right? We were never. I think we're closer now than we ever were under the old model, right? Before
the BCS model.
Yeah, before the college football playoff, before the transfer portal, before NIL, Houston, even in the Big 12, would have had no shot at playoff or conference title, beyond conference title hopes. And I think now, listen, does Houston have the money right this moment? No, but I think it's you'll start to see some of these non-traditional powers pop up over the next decade where they didn't have all of the resources in the world, but you start to put together a program, you have a couple winning seasons, you make a push in the playoff, and all of a sudden you have the ability to go and engage your donors, and they're more willing to give to that collective because the return on investment is there.
Yeah.
And you can show very tangibly, hey, if we can keep this player, it gives us a chance to go win a national championship. And Houston has to get a lot closer to that before the pockets start flowing. But let's not act like the money doesn't exist, right? It's just the guys, there's no reason for them to give it right now. What? So we can go 8-5 instead of 4-8?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you say 10 years. I don't know what college football is going to look like in 10 years.
Fair enough.
It's true.
By the time we get there to 10 years, it may not matter anymore, right? We may not have a program.
True.
We might be covering the Houston Texans on this podcast.
Hey, we're a basketball school, right?
There you go.
We're a basketball school.
Well, my friends, I believe that's probably about it for tonight. Next game for basketball Saturday, TCU. So we'll probably maybe come back on maybe either this weekend or midweek again sometime next week. We'll try to get back going a little bit more regularly again as things finish up on the football side and they get into conference play in basketball now. So a lot of good games coming up. So thanks as always for everybody. Like, subscribe. Share it with your grandma, whatever it may be. I think my parents recently figured out that I'm on YouTube, which is scary. So if you see this later, hey, great job. But yeah, y'all have got only yourselves to thank for this. Other than that, everybody take care. See us on the boards. We'll try to stay tapped in over there with everything over on that side. And we will see y'all next time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.